Park Nova was our first project in a place where we didn't really understand the context. Singapore was a place we only, at that time, perceived visually through images on the internet and buildings that we see in books.
If you look at our projects in London, or if you look at our projects in Milan and other places, they have a strong contextual narrative, how you use the building, how you address the way people live in a luxury residential environment. But this was our first building in Singapore, people from a different culture and a different way of living.
We also wanted to explore how we can be creative to create something offering variety to the residents that live there.
But also to be something that responded to an expectation from our client that wanted something very, very unique and different. Very green, very focused on outdoor living, but with a certain kind of climate that needed to be respected. If you design against the forces of nature, you will always be on the defensive foot. When we looked at the site, it's quite small actually for this kind of building, and we looked at the ambition that our client had. If we could unlock it, this was a unique opportunity for us. A building that responded to tropical modernism in a very, very different way, because this building also has to be a great place for people to live.
From that point onwards, the only goal was to find a way of building it. The client, Ms. Ho, had gone through by now 11, 12 architects on the site, and they cannot seem to reach a image or the concept or a impression of the building. Could you present your ideas in 2 weeks' time?
We set out to build a narrative around health and well-being, the use of biophilia, an environment that immersed people in the green in their everyday lives. So you each have your own private garden, different types of plants and different types of species that were intentionally selected to promote health and well-being and a feeling of comfort when you're in your home.
Being a little bit more open with the brief was kind of helpful. I approached it how I would design a residential building in London. And when I drew it on the plan, we started to see how, there is this kind of form that's been created. If you had two bars, it creates kind of a butterfly shape. And from that, we just kind of ran with it. Okay, let's see what the butterfly could evolve into. Could the units be sitting in this kind of undulating green, which are gardens, which in plan look like butterfly wings?
That became the inspiration for the way the balconies undulate and change as they wrap around the building. So for us, that's an interpretation of the fluttering of the butterfly wings. And we realized that it was lending protection from solar radiation between one floor and the other, shading, therefore, more comfort. And these are principles that have been applied for centuries in tropical climates. We were able to look at them at a high-rise scale. Two, you could choose between sitting in a protected space within your garden or sitting in a space that was exposed to the sky. So you had this duality that was created. It began to weave nicely into a whole story about the way people can live in the apartments and not be constrained on how you use the outdoor spaces.
We showed the client the idea. She loved the design so much, in fact, that it was sealed with the concept image of the butterfly form of the building.
We started out by creating very, very large gardens that surrounded each of the units as the building went up. And of course, this was a slight contravention to the building regulations at the time.
The building that's wrapped in these lush greenery is breaking beyond the norm of what Singapore usually builds residential buildings. Typically, Singapore only allows 1 meter green. Can you reduce your greenery to be 1 meter? We did look at it and we explored it, but it no longer delivered that butterfly image that was signed off so early on in the process that everyone loved. So Then that's when we applied all of the compliance codes and things that we didn't quite know yet at that point with the local partners to kind of work towards that goal. And they, in fact, saw the merits of that design aspiration. And so that was a big breakthrough.
We managed to convince the local authorities that because of the environmental benefits, comfort and the use of energy in the buildings, but they also were benefits to the health and well-being of the individuals because we could have larger gardens, different varieties of plant species in a high-rise building, which is rarely achievable.
Looking back at it, I think we appreciated the fact that we knew less than we did now. By changing the way we worked, it created something that was new.
Park Nova is a nod towards the importance of addressing climate that you're building in. In these climates, you need to shade buildings from the intense sun.
Without any natural shading, you have to rely on coating to the glass. Nice blue sky is what we always wish for, and sun. But if the coating's so dark, then you are misperceptibly living in a more darker environment, and that kind of casts a negative feeling to you.
So through these passive means, we were able to use a neutral glass. And that means that the light coming in is practically unaltered from natural daylight. And that promotes a healthier feeling and a fresher feeling, and it connects the occupier more immediately with what's going on outside as well. We have to acknowledge the forces of nature, and we have to acknowledge the value that without it, we can't sustain life on Earth. So designing in harmony with it seems to me to be the only logical conclusion.
The buildings come out very picturesque. I think every time I go past the building, I find unique new angles that really drives home the idea of this analogy of the butterfly. There were moments where we questioned whether it would look like the smooth butterfly shape and the curves that you see. But to our amaze, the building has come out exactly like the images that we created, something that we're tremendously proud of.
When you think about luxury, you don't think about something that's also totally in harmony with the environment. We were able to combine the two and create a building that interacts with nature, but it also still can promote a luxury way of living. It not only provides a very, very nice place internally for people to live, but it adds this sort of element of surprise and delight to the passerby. When you see it, you see something that's unique, something that's different. It's a one-of-a-kind building in Singapore. And I think that also that surprise and delight translates a little bit to the people that live in the building, that when you come home at night, you feel like you're coming to someplace special, someplace unique, and someplace that you want to live in.